This video is in partnership with Riverside. So there are now so many wireless mics out there, but there's really only a few that have risen to the top, including the DJI wireless mics, as well as, in my opinion, the Rode wireless mics. They're really the most commonly used wireless mics for all sorts of different types of content. But we now have a potential new competitor in that top tier category, and that is Insta360. And that might be a little bit surprising because Insta360 is obviously more known for their cameras than for their audio gear. So when I first heard about these wireless Pro microphones, I was curious. And so when I first got my hands on them, I wanted to test them in a few different ways in which I would personally genuinely use them on a regular basis. And of course, in my opinion, for a mic at this price, it should be relatively versatile. So I tested it in the kind of typical way, it clipped onto my shirt as a lav mic. I also tried it mounted on top of my Sony camera as a replacement shotgun mic. I tested it connected to my smartphone for smartphone videos. There's also a USB to 3.5mm adapter, so you can actually plug an external lavalier into the transmitter. And I even tested out plugging it directly into my MacBook to get audio into my computer. And I thought a great way to test it with computer audio is with today's video partner, Riverside. So you can literally just plug the little receiver directly into your computer with USB-C, and then you've automatically got an extra audio input that you can select in any software that you're using. So Riverside is where I do all of my remote interviews or podcast episodes. And the best part about recording with Riverside is that it records everything locally to your computer first, so you get everything in maximum audio and video quality. Because often other platforms like Zoom, for example, will heavily compress your audio and video before it streams, whereas Riverside avoids this, so it records it to computer and then uploads it to the cloud, meaning you get absolute maximum quality. And then once it's uploaded, you can edit on your computer anywhere using the built-in editor directly in your browser. It has text-based editing, heaps of AI enhancements, including for your audio, if there are any issues with your audio, and short form clipping, which is one of my personal favorite features of Riverside. I use this all the time to cut up my long form video into short form clips that I can upload to YouTube Shorts or Instagram. So if you're looking for an all-in-one content creation solution where you can record, stream, edit, repurpose, and upload your content, then give Riverside a go. There's a link in the description if you want to try it out, and use the code NICK1 to get your first 30 days completely free. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk a bit about the actual hardware of this mic system, because overall I've genuinely been really impressed, and the hardware is also partly one of the key differentiators of this particular mic system that I've never seen before. So let's start with the case. So when you first open it, the transmitter will instantly light up and show you both the charge level of all the devices as well as the actual amount of storage space left in record hours, which I think is excellent. Everything's stored very neatly, and honestly, the thing I like the most about this case is that it's got extra storage compartments for all sorts of different accessories. I'm still really disappointed that there's no place to put a 3.5mm cable. If there was, this would be a complete case. I still haven't seen any manufacturers do that. But apart from that, overall, it's genuinely a really sturdy, nice case. It's all made of very high quality plastic. And I actually really like in the front, it's a semi-transparent design. So when you've got the images on your little transmitters, more on that later, you can actually partly see them through the front of the case, which is a really nice touch. Now, when it comes to the receiver itself, it's surprisingly lightweight. That was the first thing that struck me. But despite the fact that it's lightweight, it feels very high quality, which is really nice to see. It's also got a cold shoe mount on top, so you can either clip in a transmitter or other accessories, depending on where you've got it mounted. On the bottom, you've got a clip, so you can put this onto a cold shoe or anywhere else that you want to clip it. It's got a really nice clear display, which is a touch screen that's really responsive. The menus are really well laid out. You can control all of the different settings for the transmitters on this device, as well as for the receiver itself. And it even supports time code, which is actually a nice touch for professionals. Now let's get to kind of the main event, which is the transmitters themselves. They're obviously this really nice round design. I think they look great. They feel great. They feel very high quality, sturdy. They actually feel quite nice to touch. On the back, you've got this interchangeable clip or magnet system, depending on how you're wanting to mount them. On the bottom, you've got a power button, a record button, and a USB port, which I am a huge fan of. I cannot stand it when mics have proprietary charging or data transfer systems. You can also transfer the files from the mic directly to your computer, just like an external drive. So you just plug it in, no extra software needed, and you'll have access to all of your recordings. Plus, like I said, you can plug in adapters so that you can use external lavalier mics. So overall, I was very impressed with the build quality, but let's talk about the big obvious thing that I haven't mentioned, which is this e-ink display. Now, this to me was kind of the big question. Was the e-ink display going to be a bit of a gimmick to cover up maybe average build quality or audio quality, or is it actually going to be a useful feature? Now, it's fully customizable via the Insta360 app. So you can put any image or logo or anything you want on this display. You just have to keep in mind it is a 6-color e-ink display, so complex colored images won't necessarily show up the best on this. It works best with simple graphics and logos. However, the huge advantage of this being e-ink is the fact that it doesn't draw power. So the only time it draws power is when it's changing the image or refreshing the display. But apart from that, it just stays on this image even when the mic is off, which I think is brilliant. To change images, it takes somewhere between 20 and kind of 50 seconds. And to answer whether or not I think it's a gimmick, after using it for a few weeks, I genuinely think this could be a serious game changer for a lot of people, a lot of content creators, a lot of professionals, because you can change the logo to anything you want. So if you're doing branded content, for example, you could put the brand logo on here. If you want your own logo, you could put your own logo on here. If you want to do something a bit more fun, you could just do the little smiley face. You could do literally whatever you want. And I just haven't seen this anywhere else. A lot of brands now are doing multicolored microphones, which I think is a step in the right direction, but they're still very limited compared to an actual display that you can change to whatever you want. And so I think this feature alone has the potential to really make this a genuine competitor. However, the question is, does the audio quality match up? Or is this feature designed to be a distraction from the audio quality? Now, the first thing is that it supports 32-bit float. So that alone gives me a lot of peace of mind about the audio quality, because even if it doesn't sound exceptional out of the box, with that kind of dynamic range, you can definitely EQ it to sound how you want. And that has been my personal experience. I've been recording in 32-bit float. This audio right now being recorded on this mic is recorded in 32-bit float, and I've EQ'd it to sound the way I want it to. Now, when it comes to the average user, how do these sound directly out of the box without any audio adjustment? Well, this audio currently has no EQ applied. I personally think they still sound really solid. I've got no real complaints. To me, they sound a little bit mid-heavy. So when I EQ them myself, I take the mids out a little bit. But apart from that, it's very clean, and I think will easily compete with the other main competitors. Now, apart from just general audio quality, I think the other interesting thing about these mics is the actual mic setup itself. So it's actually a 3-mic array. So it's got 2 mics on the sides and then 1 on the top. And this actually lets you set up the mic into different directional pickup patterns, which I've never seen on a wireless mic system. So it's got 4 pickup modes. So you've got the typical cardioid, which is essentially what wireless mics normally work with, which is basically kind of like a V shape, and any audio in that direction will get picked up by the mic. But then you've also got a figure 8 pickup mode. So this will record things in front of the microphone as well as things behind the microphone. So this could be really handy if you want to use it on top of your camera while you're filming and you want to hear both your own voice as well as anyone who's in front of the camera. It also has an omnidirectional mode, so it will record everything around it. And then it has a voice focus mode. So this is designed to be a more narrow beam in front of the microphone. And this was actually really interesting to me because it's partly designed to be a potential replacement for a shotgun mic on top of a camera. And I actually put this head to head with my Rode NTG, and I'll share the results of that after the next section. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was the noise cancellation. Now, personally, I'm never generally a big fan of noise cancellation on any type of mic because they sound very heavily processed. This actually has a built-in AI chip which handles the noise cancellation, and it has 2 modes. It's got strong and weak. And I did 2 tests with this, one outdoors and one indoors. So I'll let you judge the results yourself. So currently I don't have noise cancellation turned on. This is just how it sounds with no cancellation whatsoever. So I'm going to turn that on. So there's 2 modes. So this first one is with weak noise cancellation turned on. So that's how this sounds. There's a bit of birds chirping around, a bit of road noise, some breeze. Let's put it onto strong. So this is now in this strong noise cancellation mode. So how does that sound? Hopefully not too artificial. Now let's turn it back on to disabled. So now that's with no noise cancellation whatsoever. This is just back to the regular mic. Okay, I'm back home and I wanted to do one more kind of extreme test. So I've actually got my dryer running right next to my office door. It's pretty loud, it's pretty consistent. So I'm going to turn on the active noise cancellation and see how much of that noise it takes out. So this is before, and then this is with weak noise cancellation enabled. I'm very curious to see how much of that noise it cuts out. So now I'm going to switch to the strong noise cancelling. That's with the strong noise cancelling turned on. And I mean, what I'm seeing on the meter is that it seems to be cutting out the noise completely when I'm not speaking. So that seems impressive. And then if I turn the noise cancellation back off, this is how that sounds. So honestly, to me overall, the noise cancellation on these mics is arguably the best I've experienced in terms of both cutting out noise, but also not making your voice sound overly processed. For me, in the weak mode, your voice sounds still very natural. In the strong mode, you can tell it's processed a little bit, but it's not terrible. So to me, that is a big win for these mics. Okay, the next thing I wanted to test was whether or not it could replace my shotgun mic, because I use the Rode NTG on my camera all the time. And the biggest downside to me is just that it's a bit bulky, it adds weight. And so I did a direct comparison with the two microphones. Okay, so this is a test with the Rode NTG, got it mounted on top of my Sony camera, and I'm about 1 meter away from the camera probably. So this is how it sounds as I go around to the side. So now I'm directly on the side of the mic at about 90 degrees. Now if I slowly come back around to the front, this is how the audio sounds. Okay, now this is recording to the Insta360 Mic Pro, and this is with the voice focus mode. Now, if I go around to the side, this is how it sounds as I come around 90 degrees, so on the very side of the microphone. And then if I slowly come around back to the front of the microphone, this is how it sounds when I'm back in front. What I found is that these definitely aren't going to replace a regular shotgun mic. I found that the NTG just sounded fuller, clearer. It just sounded better overall. And the other thing was that I definitely noticed in the voice focus mode, you can kind of tell that the AI is deciding when to cut out the audio coming from the side direction, because I was kind of clear up to a point and then it would kind of just cut out. Now, does that mean I wouldn't use these as a shotgun mic replacement? I think again, in a pinch, if I didn't have anything else, these will definitely do the job. They're just not going to be able to replace an actual shotgun mic in terms of audio quality, but definitely points for versatility. I haven't seen other wireless mics that have the capability to even attempt this kind of thing. Now, the next thing I wanted to try was a range test, and these ones are rated for 400 meters, which is a very long way. And this is how that test went. Okay, I'm gonna mark my start position on the app and let's start walking. So I am now 6 meters away, 7 meters away, 9, 10 meters away. And I've generally found that when I turn my back to the camera and receiver, that's when I start to have connectivity issues. Now I'm currently at about 30 meters away, so I'm probably getting pretty... I'm gonna turn here, this is 60 meters. So again, it's going to be interesting to see if I've still got connection. So we're now at 113 meters away from the microphone. Is the connection still clear? If I turn back, this should be able to give us a clear idea of the connection strength. So I'm just going to start walking back. And if it did have any connection issues, this is generally where it starts to cut back in. And we are back to the main camera. So as you can see, from about 10 meters away, if I had my back turned to the camera, the audio signal just instantly started to drop out. Anytime I turned back to the camera, even at the full 150 meters away, the connection would resume and I would have relatively clear audio. I found that at 150 meters, I was still getting some kind of distortion coming through and it wasn't crystal clear. You have to make sure that the mic and the receiver are direct line of sight. If there's anything in between them, you're going to have interference. However, this is not unusual in my experience. I've never had a wireless mic system that has had a clear signal with my back turned from more than 20 meters away. So I would say these are about on par with the typical range, with the caveat that these only support 2.4 gigahertz, whereas other systems like the DJI support 5 gigahertz as well. So that means you're more likely to experience interference with these mics. Having said all of that, because you can record internally, all you have to do is just hit record anytime you're recording at any kind of distance. And then even if you experience interference, you're going to have the full quality recording directly on the transmitter. So look, overall, I think the e-ink display is really the big differentiator here. That combined with the 3 mic array. I think there is genuine utility for being able to display whatever you want on the screen, especially when it doesn't take up any battery life. And I can see a lot of content creators finding that extremely useful. And then those directional modes, again, make this mic more versatile than the average wireless mic. I think when it comes to overall sound quality and the actual microphone features, I would say it's on par with other flagship mics out there. I think it's at a bit of a slight disadvantage in terms of that range test because it's only 2.4 gigahertz. I think the other kind of person that these would be great for are people who are already deep in the Insta360 ecosystem, because these mics do directly connect to a lot of the newer Insta360 cameras without any receiver needed, including the new Insta360 Luna, which is coming very soon. So despite the fact that these mics are on the slightly more pricey end, I definitely recommend them. I've been using them in my own content on a regular basis since I got them, and I've been very satisfied, and I really do think you would be too. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you have the DJI or the Rode mics, and how do you think these compare? Or are you just going to pick these up yourself and use them for your own content? Don't forget to check out Riverside using the link in the description with the code NICK1. Otherwise, check out this video here, which YouTube thinks you will really enjoy.